What's up, guys? It's your boy, Bharat Magandhi, back with some more choices that matter, and the sun went out. And, when we last left off, Sharon almost got killed by Santiago, but, Santiago is now dead, and I'm happy about it. Now, and the good thing is that Sharon's eye is going to be fine. That's the most thing I'm happy about, is that Sharon is perfectly fine. Because I have fully decided that this will definitely be the run that I try to hit it off with Sharon. so yeah, I asked her if we're gonna go get some gelato, and right where I left off. I breathed in, and the air already felt warmer. It took 3 weeks for the sun to return this time. 3 weeks. Damn, for real? Around us, people were throwing their coats and beanies away, then stretching out their new, barely bared arms to soak in every possible ray of sun. A news team scrambled to set up, then film the most ordinary shots: shadow on the sidewalk, slide on a leaf, a woman wearing sunglasses. They knew every shot would be riveting once the sun had set at night. Sharon laughed delightedly and led me to her favorite gelato place. She already had a favorite gelato place. I've tried every flavor at least twice, she said. Which do you want? Psst, surprised me. Sharon glowed in the sunlight and sunshine. She looked larger than life after 2 weeks of artificial light. People kept interrupting us to hug Sharon or kiss her cheek. Hey, get your damn crusty lips off of her. To thank her for standing up to Santiago. One man vigorously shook her hand, forgetting he was still wearing golden contact lenses. I enlightened him about his lenses, and he took them out at once, stamping them underfoot. I can't take much more of this, said Sharon. You're right, I said. It's time to leave Rome, but where will we go? She pursed her lips. Nowhere alpine. There's a lot of extra ice up there nowadays, and all the extra is about to melt. They'll be flooded. Nowhere coastal either, I said. Having the ocean go down so far and then up again will be chaos. Sand isn't known for its ability to resist erosion. You're right, she said. I remembered the fireflies shining around Karen. Karen? Sharon, when she was close to death, and I remembered suddenly seeing owls fly away when the sun returned. So they were owls. I found myself checking my phone and realized I was expecting Dolores to call. If she was trying, she wasn't getting through. I smiled. There was something upsides to having the world's communications technology as collateral damage. Uh, I need to find Etienne and get the diary section he translated so far. Yeah, we kind of do. Okay, she said with that devil-may-care smile. We fell silent, just looking at the world with sunlight. A woman shouted something about Santiago right in front of us and punched another woman in the mouth. The second woman touched her bleeding lip, looking around herself in sudden fear. She still had golden eyes. A sudden hush fell on the area, and then suddenly more people were yelling at the yellow-eyed woman, who definitely shouted back. A blonde woman threw aside her chair and snatched up a butter knife. Sharon and I both leapt to our feet. Suddenly all eyes turned our way for one crucial instant. Stop. No more killing. The golden-eyed woman suddenly realized the danger she was in. She turned and fled. Our best option was obviously to use the ship Dolores had on retainer for me, so we arranged a time and place to get on board. Remind me, said Sharon. The oldest is Francine, the captain, then Bianca, the navigator, then Karina, the cook. Got it, first go, I said, although all of them do everything, really. Engine maintenance, lookout duty, swabbing the deck, shooting dangerously crazed sea creatures in the endless darkness, all the usual nautical things. I see you're a nautical expert, said Sharon. I've, swabbed, I said. That means mopping, right? More or less. We spent hours just getting a taxi, but somehow it didn't matter. The sun had returned. Hey, that's good. Bianca usually slept during the afternoons, kept watch at night, but even she was awake and basking in the sun when we finally arrived. Francine brought out a bottle of celebratory scotch, and we all partook. Soon I felt wonderfully warm inside and out. Francine was a ship's owner and the older sister, and she dressed like a CEO, except that she left her long black hair loose when her ship was docked. The rest of the time, it swung around her a single long plait. I believe that's what I was trying to say. I don't know. Tell me, she said, how much longer can someone like you continue to work for the company? I'm not complaining, but it seems to me that you're too much of a hero type to survive in a business where money is more important than life. As long as I still need their money. The beginning of our journey was mercifully uneventful. I attempted repeatedly to contact Etienne, but our best phone call gave me just one word: Turkey. Presumably he meant that he was in Turkey, not that I was a turkey. Or that he wanted me to bring some turkey with him. I told Francine to head east to take us to the city of Antalya. Egypt has completely closed its borders. I sat with head in hands, wondering what to do next. Perhaps Etienne planned for us to meet in Turkey. Perhaps he meant for us to travel through Turkey rather than risk the deeper sea into the middle of the Mediterranean, where the danger from panic sea creatures was highest. All I knew was that he thought I should go to Turkey. Probably. So that's what I told Francine, who informed me that we'd be sailing close to the coast all the way, making Sicily a significant obstacle. Fine, I said, you know what you're doing. Sicily was one enormous party sitting in the gray area between celebration and riot. The three sisters saw the chaos on shore and decided we all needed to stop in Sicily overnight. A few clouds passing over the sun made everyone jump, but when people looked up and saw all was well, our piratical guides redoubled their efforts to dance and drink the day into history. A man pressed a full bottle of tequila into my hands and gave a sack of quartered limes to Bianca. Francine confiscated both until we had a good table. We toasted one another over and over again, and Carmine did her best to teach us some useful phrases that were the Italian equivalent of bottoms up. 6 drinks in, even Sharon was struggling with the language barrier, but somehow it didn't seem to matter anymore. Teacher, the men at the table near the cafe door did not look as happy as everyone else. Based on their body language, they are discussing Miss Francine and her sisters. Quietly asked Bianca who they are. When Bianca went to get another round of drinks, I went with her and it carefully drew her aside. Let me guess, she said, you're worried about the Beardley table? They certainly seem very concerned about your family, I said. We've met, she said. I waited for details and was disappointed. Bianca smirked at me and let me shelve the tray back to the table. Schlep. Follow her lead, whatever. It seemed to take forever, but at last we were back on board and ready to set sail. It was oddly comforting to be on familiar ground, even though it wasn't ground at all. Sharon and I were useless on deck, which was a relief. I went to my quarters and lay on my bunk bed. I hadn't meant to sleep, but I did, and was woken by gunfire. Terrified of some new disaster, I ran on deck. We were under attack. Somalian pirates? The men from Sicily were firing at our hull, aiming to take out the engine. Francine spotted me and tossed one of her spare pistols right at me. I caught it, but I wasn't sure if I was willing to fire on the other ship. Avast, get lost. You're outgunned. Find Sharon and barricade yourself in the strongest cabin. No. Avast, get lost. You're outgunned. I looked where Francine and her sisters were shooting and spotted several bullet holes in the flak of the opposite ship. Hoping I wasn't making the wrong decision, I focused on the scattered pattern of bullet holes and added my own. I was rewarded by a rain of bullets on our own hull, and I threw myself to the deck. Nice shooting, Francine shouted. Keep it up. Before the bullets pierced the ship and killed me, what a stupid way to die. I crawled into a better position, listening carefully in an attempt to figure out how the gunfight was going. The noise was lessening. The other ship was fleeing. In a few moments, the fight was over, and Francine came to retrieve her weapon. I handed it over gladly. She was flushed with pleasure and shaking with the excitement of the fight. I stepped backwards automatically, not knowing if she committed murder to keep her ship. Would you look at that, she said, pointing at my wrist. Is that a emoticon device? No, it's just a watch and is running slow at the moment. I'm going to tell her the company gave it to me. She thought for a moment and then said, in that case, keep it. With that, she left to inspect the ship for damage. Sharon stirred. What are you doing in here? I collapsed onto her chair, an armchair with fixed cushions that was bolted to the floor. You just slept through a gun battle, I said. What? She said. No fair. Sharon yawned. So are we there yet? Still a lot of sailing before we get to enjoy Turkey. Actually, no, said Sharon. I'm not sticking around. Oh, I said, feeling like a presumptuous jerk. I'm sorry, is there somewhere else you want to go, or where you think I should be, or both? It's Chrissy, she said heavily. When I was on stage, I already knew the sun would probably come back once more and then disappear again. She's scared of the dark, and I'm scared for her. Poor possum. I have to go and see for myself that she's alright. I've been so thoughtless, I said. She patted my arm. You've been focused. That's a good thing at the moment. You keep doing your thing, and who knows, perhaps we'll meet again sooner than you think. It won't be easy getting all the way to Peru from here, I said, wishing there was something useful I could do. There's a lot of demand for flights, she said. They'll rejig things so they can keep going without all the missing satellites. I bet they're already flying a little bit. Give Chrissy a hug for me. Modi just updated again. I bit my lip. Modi was becoming a better person than I was, and I was a little bit jealous along with the pride. Modi saw things differently to me somehow. The amount of empathy Modi commanded was very admirable. Whoever made the Modicons must have been a genius to create something kinder than actual people. I'll miss you. I knew you'd understand, she said. May I talk to Modi? Of course. See, look, he updated. Of course. She took my hand and turned it over so she could speak directly to Modi. Look after teacher, okay? And yourself, too. I'll miss both of you. I will miss you, too. Sharon straightened up and hugged me. I know it's hypocritical of me, but stay out of trouble. I'll do my best, I promise, and I intend to keep Modi safe, too. Arc 9 completed. Dang, how many arcs are there gonna be? Dang, there's a lot of these. You and 18% of players took the fight to Victor and will be looking for Etienne in Turkey. Oh, begin Arc 10. Oh my god. Our pirate associates dropped Sharon off on the far southern coast of Italy, and we traveled on without her. The first hop is likely to be the hardest, Captain Francine advises. That is, the sea gap between Italy and Greece. It's tempted to take us up around Venice and Croatia and so forth, but not quite tempted enough to spend all that extra time at sea, so we'll hold our breath and skip across. Do I get a vote in this, I asked. Carmine, the youngest sister, snorted derisively. I don't, so you certainly won't. We stopped at Otranto to thoroughly check and refuel the boat, then waited until the sun was high in the sky before setting off across the water. The sunlit water smelled deliciously of salt, but there was a hint of rot on the air. A lot of animals had died lately due to their own berserk behavior since the first sun outage. Earth would never be the same. Stay on deck, will you? Carmine asked. Even a landlubber can see danger coming and shout a warning. Daydream while Modi keeps watch, yeah. When we were safely across the strait and hugging the Albanian coast, the mood visibly calmed. Some seagulls attempted to get into our galley, but that was more hazardous to the deck than to us. How is Albania these days? I asked Carmine. Is it burned out, revolting, dealing with total infrastructure collapse? She shrugged one shoulder elegantly. It's better than Italy was last week. We sailed south past Greece, hopping from island to island where any large sea creature were likely to beach themselves before doing us any great harm. It was clear that the animals of the world were continuing to behave oddly. We saw a group of polar bears on a sandy shore looking at self-conscious as a cat caught falling over. Our ship remained safe and we quickly grew bored. Carmine challenged me to an all-day game of poker. Oh god. Cautiously agree. She produced a battered pack of cards that I inspected closely before agreeing to play. After a few rounds, I realized Moody was using subtle vibrations to advise me on my actions. I paid attention and eventually earned over 1,000 euros. When we were alone, Moody informed me that the cards were not deliberately marked, but someone who owned the cards could quickly memorize every fold and flaw in the pack and win all their games that way. Not today, I said with a smile. You have quite the poker face, Moody. We made our slow way from the Greek islands to the Turkish and then sailed along the Turkish coast until we reached Antalya, where we parted ways. I felt oddly upset to be leaving the pirate sisters behind, but that was probably just the romance of the sea. Antalya would have been pleasant if my sea legs didn't insist that it was rocking gently back and forth. I managed to walk inland a little and spotted a hotel. I wished I knew how Etienne planned for us to find one another in a nation of 75 million people. Book a suite with 2 rooms. The hotel's receptionist didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Turkish, but we worked out the basic soon enough. For some reason, he took away my towels. It seemed I hadn't communicated as well as I thought. I wasn't concerned until I remembered that I left every scrap of fabric I wasn't wearing at the laundromat next door. I had a glass of cold water that sat strangely in my stomach, and sat down to wait for the room to stop moving up and down. It didn't oblige, so I turned on the TV. Only one channel was working. I watched a Turkish soap opera with increasing astonishment. But why did the monkey steal the queen's red shoes in the first place? Eventually, my existence crossed over the subtle threshold between fantastical television and bizarre dreams. I dreamed of a boy crying and crying with a single owl feather clutched in his hands. He was sobbing words, but they weren't in English. He was crying so hard I couldn't have understood him anyways. No one could. When the boy finally threw the feather to the ground, the owl appeared. It was as big as he was, and the boy hugged it and stopped crying. The owl hooted softly and rearranged its feathers with elaborate care, then it flew away. The boy was all alone again. I woke up with tears streaming down my face. Teacher, why are you crying? Tell Modi the dream. Do you think someone was trying to communicate with you? What? Said, rubbing my face. It felt like I hadn't slept at all. No, that never occurred to me. I made myself get up and wash my face, which I then dried on my shirt since I didn't have a single towel. The visitor information folder was mainly in Turkish with a few sections of utterly incomprehensible English. I had Modi run it back and forth through online translator a few times, but it only got worse. That was probably the method the original interpreter had used. Ultimately, I followed my nose to the breakfast bar, offered money to a woman standing at the entrance, and went inside to eat. I wasn't sure if the woman was a hotel worker, a snappy dresser, or an expert con artist. I also didn't know if the cost of breakfast was meant to be included in my room fee, in which case I'd just given her either an enormous tip or a bribe. The food was good, by turns salty, sweet, and sharp. I was so ignorant of Turkish cuisine I didn't recognize several dishes. Modi begged me to try them all, and for the most part I was glad I did. The spicy sausage was especially good. My only disappointment was that the only bread was British-style bread rolls. I've been hoping for Turkish bread, so obvious reasons. Oh well, surely I have some before I left Turkey. I found a new person at the desk who spoke enough English to understand that I wished for my talents to be returned to my room. Feeling triumphant, I visited the gift shop and found some Turkish delight. Teacher, those have almost no nutritional value whatsoever. Argue with Modi that the lollies represent a vital cultural experience. Let Modi win this one. Man, we gonna argue, bro. I enjoyed a passionate and convoluted argument with Modi about the relative merits of keeping away from sweets, but I won in the sense that I ate the Turkish delight anyway. Back in my room, I still had no towels, but I did have an enormous stack of Turkish newspapers. How on earth had I asked for newspapers when I couldn't even get towels? I decided to let myself air dry and to rinse out my clothes in the shower as well. I showered and wrapped myself in bed sheets, surprised at the amount of salt that had collected and dried on my skin during the sea voyage. When I tried to turn the TV on again, two channels were available, and one of them was the news. I watched for a while, and Modi translated some tales of local political scandals, heartfelt speeches by teenage pop stars, and a local competition about who made the best goat cheese. After a while, it was amazingly calm. Modi lowered its volume and then stopped translating. Images of sunlight, military parades, and sports contests washed over me, along with an unintelligible finance report and scenes of a weather reporter standing neck deep in a dripping snowdrift. I smiled serenely at the sound of chanting before realizing it was real-life chanting coming from outside the window. In an instant, I was thrown back to the constant paranoia of Santiago's Italy. My heart pounded and I ran to the window. Do not be afraid, teacher. There is a local election for mayor here tomorrow. No one plans to harm you. Thank you, Modi, I said, but my heart was still beating a mile a minute. Moments later, I realized what Etienne would do to help me find him. He'd go to a famous city. Istanbul had 14 million people, but that was still better than Turkey's 75 million. Time to check out, I told Modi. We're off to Istanbul. Call him. Modi was unable to connect to Etienne, but assured me that it would keep trying. Hey, I said, realizing something I should have noticed earlier. Next time I'm attempting to actually get inside after several days of travel, can you please go ahead and translate for me? Okay, teacher. You must admit it was fun. I admit no such thing, I said, dressing in my damp and smelly clothes. I answered a knock at the door and made Modi ask the woman for towels. That would have worked a treat, except that she was a local print journalist looking for a human interest story. The sketchy internet was having an energizing effect on print media. She didn't have any towels and I didn't have any comments. I said a firm goodbye, accepting her business card, and went to check myself out. Once I'd paid for my room, I picked up my clothes from the laundromat and it was time to move on. Catch a bus or catch a train? Catch a train. Modi asked for directions in Turkish, then directed me to the train station. I paid for a ticket and stepped on board, saying Istanbul to anyone that looked kind enough not to object to my disheveled appearance. Several people said Istanbul back to me, so I figured I was on the right track, probably even the right train. I wondered if Modi's sense of humor would stretch to that, and decided not to risk it. The train stayed in the station for some hours, and I grew increasingly anxious as I misunderstood everything. Okay, I need to get the next choice quickly, because it's about to end. Modi wouldn't deliberately lead me astray, right? Eventually, the train was full and a ticket collector came through taking everyone's receipts before he left. I surrendered my ticket and hoped desperately that he wasn't a fake. No one else seemed concerned, so I told myself I was being paranoid. Again. I'm gonna keep the luggage on my lap, and I'm gonna call that the end of the video. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one, and bye.